What's up YouTube? In today's video we're going to cover how to build a game-like functionality found on this award-winning site from CSS Winner. I believe this site was made by Upper Squad and it's a super cool site. I tried to do a live stream on this earlier and it actually quit. It kept failing, so I apologize if you were on that live stream. Just after it failed 2 times I figured let's just make a video and go from there. So this is basically what we're going to try and build out in Webflow. It's this pretty cool interactive game. Got some music. So there's a timer. Once it runs out of time, your game's over. And you just collect all these points, all these candy and different things. Each time you click one, it adds your point total down here at the bottom. And then I think if you click on something negative, like there's some things that can actually cause you to lose points, and it plays a different sound. So anywhere you click makes that sort of scratchy sound, unless you click on something kind of bad, like this. So it makes a different sound, and you lose a point. And then it's storing what you clicked on down here at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and try and build this out in Webflow. So I have the basic functionality built out, and basically the way I set this up is there's this mouse image here. So let me actually, that's an older one. I think this is the latest one I have pulled up. So basically this mouth is just a grayed out kind of box that's hiding everything underneath it. And then in the center of the mouth is this hole where you can actually see the game pieces inside it. And we'll use Webflow interactions to move this whole div around with our cursor, so that way we're just kind of seeing what's underneath. Now, aside from the mouth, there's also these lines that are just a lottie animation that I have. So if I hide the lines, you'll see they're stacked on top of the mouth piece. So they're just an outline of what's under the background, and they're transparent. And then if we go ahead and hide the mouth for just a second, you'll see this is the actual game board, and there's all these pieces on the game board. So these items all have a class of item, and then it just has a combo class if it's bad, so that will make you lose points, or if it's good, it has a good class that'll make you gain points. So that's the basic setup of it. I'll go ahead and show some of this stuff one more time, and I'll go ahead and show the lines. They're already shown. So I have a mouse move interaction, and you'll see what that's doing as I preview. Just moving that game piece from side to side, and I can see all the pieces underneath it. So that's working out pretty well. Also, anytime I click anywhere inside this game, you'll notice the mouth just closes like that. It makes that sort of closing effect. So for that, I have an interaction that on click just scales this down, kind of squishes the mouth div just like that, and brings it back to full scale. I think those are the main interactions I have. I also have an intro piece to this whole thing. So if we look at the game start, and we were to show that for just a second, so this start button has an interaction that when we click on it, it's going to fade out this whole div and show us the actual game underneath it. So those are the basic Webflow interactions I have set up. The timer doesn't work yet, the points don't work when we click on the items. Whenever we click on an item right now, what it's going to do, let me go ahead and hide this one more time, and I'll show you what's happening there. So say we were to click on one of these items. I have an interaction on click of the class. What it's going to do is fade up the text inside it. So there's this tiny text in the middle of this item div that's scaled all the way down. It's going to scale it up, and then it's going to fade out the item altogether. So I'll play that, and you'll see the text scales up. If you look at that item in the corner, it fades out with 0% opacity at the end. So any of these items we click on should have that interaction. I can click on any one of these, and the number fades up, whether it's a positive or negative, and the item fades out. So we still need to tie this all together, and that's where we're going to use a little bit of JavaScript and jQuery. Now don't get too scared away by this. I'll try to make it as understandable as possible, but basically we're going to be able to really create some pretty cool functionality just using a little bit of code. So the first thing I want to happen is whenever we have that starting of the game open, there's this button and it has a class of start. Whenever we click on that class, I want to start some music and I want to start a countdown. So what I can do is I have my music all in here in this audio embed on the page. These are just standard HTML audio players, and they each have their own MP3 attached to them, but you'll notice each one has an ID. So the music one has an ID of music. The empty state, that's whenever you click on the artboard but you didn't actually click on an item, it makes one sound. Whenever you click on a good item, it makes the point sound. Whenever you click on a bad item, it should make the minus sound. So we can use these IDs to actually play those different sounds, and I'll show you how in just a bit. But we'll start with the music one because that's what we'll want to play whenever we click this start button. So we'll go ahead and grab the start class, which is right here. I'll copy that and we'll come over to our code, and this is just inside some script tags. So on click of this class of start, we want to play something. We want to play the music, and the music is just a variable, and what that means is we write variables with var. So we'll start var and then we'll name our variable, our item. It can be whatever we want to name it. I'll create one called points, or point for the good sound. I forgot what it was. And then I'll just copy this code, but basically what that's doing, document get element by ID, it's going to find the audio player with the ID of point. And let me make sure, I don't remember if it was plural or singular. So we got, it's singular. So we got point, minus, and empty. So we can go ahead and just create our variables for all these because we're going to end up needing to use them anyway. So I'll just copy this line and 2 times. So this one will be empty, and we'll get the element of empty here. So there's 2 parts to this. The name can be whatever we want. This will be minus, and the ID has to reference the thing in the HTML audio player, minus ID. So we got one called music. We're just gonna do a play function, and we're just that. All you have to do is type the word play, use open and close, and then end it with a semicolon. We'll end each line with a semicolon, and that should play the music. But we also want to start a countdown, and I have a little code that we can use for this in here. This is just my countdown code that I use for different things. I'm gonna go ahead and paste this at the top. So all our variables should be up here at the top. Then this is something a little different that maybe you haven't seen before. This is called a function. And a function is just, think of it like a Webflow interaction. It can do a lot of different things. It can fade up opacities, it can do whatever we want, but we have to give that interaction, or that function, if you will, a name. So I called this one tricks count. And then once we create it, we also have to decide to play that interaction. So this tricks count is gonna start up a countdown. I wanna play it after I click on the start class. So that's why I'm going to paste that function here, and again end it with a semicolon. So we're playing tricks count, and tricks count is looking for an element with an ID of tricks count. So that's going to be this number here, and I'll just give that the ID of tricks count, and it's going to subtract 1 from it every second. So it'll go 39, 38, and it'll just count down like that. But all this isn't going to happen until we click on this button that has the class of start. That's when we play the music. That's when we start the countdown. So let's go ahead and publish this and see if it works. So on the live site, this is queued up. I can click start. The music started, and this countdown's playing. So that is perfect. That's just what we want to happen. Now from there, we want a couple different things. First of all, whenever we click on an item with the class of good, remember some of our items had the class of good, so I can just copy this whole click interaction that we already have, and we'll target the class of good. We want to play a different sound, and that is going to be the one of point. So we'll play the sound point that we created above. We don't need to queue up the countdown anymore. That's already started. And then I'll copy that click interaction again. Whenever we click on the class of bad, we want to play the minus sound. And then whenever we click on the artboard, so say we just didn't click on an item altogether, and we clicked on this game background, we would want to play just an empty sound. So I'll go ahead and copy that class and bring it over here. So we'll go ahead and copy all this code, And let's say whenever we click on the game background, we'll play the empty sound. So let's go ahead and try this out and see what happens. And I'm just gonna hide this game start for now, so that way we can get straight into the artboard and see what's going on. So on here, I'm gonna click on this good item. We got the good sound. Click on a bad item, got the bad sound. What if I click on an empty space? Got the empty sound. Alright, that's all our sounds, and it seems to be working pretty well. So another thing we want to do is whenever we click on an item, we want it to appear down here at the bottom. So these dots all have a combo class of open. That just means it hasn't been used yet. I'm going to leave that combo class on there, and they all have the background image of this dot SVG. But what I could do is replace that dot SVG with a different image from this artboard. So to do that, I'm going to find the item that I click on, and I'm going to grab the background image from that item that I clicked on, and I'm going to apply it to the first dot in the list of these dots here. So I need to grab the class of open, because that's the class of the dot that hasn't been used yet. So first thing we want to do, this will be on the click of any item. So I'll copy a click class again. Remember, all these, whether they're good or bad, have the class of item applied to it. So on the click of any item, what we want to do is actually grab the thing with the class of open. So to select an element, we had to do just like this example you see up here, the $sign, the open and close. Inside there we can do single or double quotes. Then if it's a class, we have to start off with a period. Then we paste the class name, and that's how we get the element. But right now it's going to get every element that has the class of open, so it's going to get all the dots. And we really don't want to apply the background image to all the dots. We only want to apply it to the first dot. So we can use EQ, which just means the element we want to grab, and 0 would be the first dot, 1 would be the second dot, 2 would be the third dot. I know it's a little confusing, but basically 0 is the first item on our page. So the first open dot on our page, we want to do something to, and we'll find out what we want to do in just a second. So I'm going to actually go ahead and search. I have some code in here for changing a background image. And basically we can use this code right here to do what we need to do. So I'll go ahead, and in here we're going to create a variable, and we want it to, I'll just call it current image. It could be whatever we want, but current image, img. We want to get the image of the item we clicked on. So if we clicked on the donut, we'd want it to be a donut. If we clicked on poop, we'd want it to be the poop emoji. So to do that, we can actually use something like this. We can say this. So $sign, open and close. We don't do the quotes in it anymore, and we just use the word this. And all that means is that's referencing the item that we clicked on. So this item class, it's going to find the one we clicked on, and it's going to use this item there. So we need to get the background image of this item. So what we can do is use this little piece of code right here, CSS background image, and it's going to find that URL, that background image URL of the item we clicked on. And it's going to store it in this variable called current item. So all we need to do is apply this current item, because it's holding a URL. We need to apply that URL to the open dot, that first open dot. So what I can do there is actually grab this code here, which is this CSS code, and I'm going to add that in here. So the first open dot in the list, we're going to grab the background image, and this is where we actually apply a URL. And that URL needs to be current image, this image up here. So if we go ahead and save that, we can test it out and see what happens. So I'll go ahead and publish this, and I'll go back to the live site. So now let's say I click on this cupcake. See, that first dot becomes a cupcake. But now let's say I click on this popcorn, that first dot is now the popcorn. So I don't want it to just keep replacing the first dot in the list endlessly. I want to eventually just to start applying it to the next dots and not just keep reusing that first dot. So for that to happen, remember all these dots have a class of open, and that's what we're looking for. All we had to do really is after we apply an image to this first dot, just remove the class of open from that image, and then it's going to go to the second dot in the list because the second dot is now the first one that has the open class applied to it. So all I had to do is come back over to my code, and right here after we apply that background image, we want to add a period. Again, this is chaining, and then we'll use the word remove in the capital class. So anytime we write in JavaScript, we want to start with a lowercase word followed by a capital case word. So we use camel case. And then we had to do the open and close squigglies, but now we need to tell it what class to remove. What class do we want it to remove? So we'll do the open and close, open and close single quotes for now. And then in here, we'll just remove the class of open. And because this has the word class here, we don't need a period in this instance because it already knows this is a class. So let's go ahead and test this out. After it applies a background image to that first dot, it should remove its class of open. So let's go ahead and try it. Apply the image. Now what happens when we click on the second image? It applies it to this next dot, and it removed the class of open from this dot. So I can click on another image. It applies it to the next spot, another. Now whenever we click on a negative, we want to remove one of the good items because that's one less spot. There's exactly enough good items for all these dots. So once we click on a negative one, we should lose one of the good items, not be able to click on it anymore. So to do that, we're going to go back to our Webflow code. And we already have this one click of bad item. We're playing the negative sound. Let's just add something else to that. Let's go ahead and say we also want to get the item. So we can go ahead and get the item right here. And then we will use EQ again to grab the first item on the page. And then actually it wouldn't be item, it would be good, sorry. Because we don't want to grab any negative items, we only want to grab the combo class good. The ones that are good, we'll grab the first good item, and then we'll just remove it from the page. So that should do the trick. And whenever we hit the good item that we clicked on in Webflow, it's still on the page, it just has display none set. So really, whenever we click on a good item, we also need to remove it from the page. So we'll use that same thing that we used before, this, and then we'll do dot remove. That way we're removing any items we already clicked on, so that way when we use this code, we're only removing items that haven't been selected yet. So let's go ahead and try that out and see what happens. So we'll go back over here, and now when I click on a good item, nothing happens. I click on a bad item, and it removed a good item from down here. What happens if I click on another? It removed another good item. So it removed a lot of my good items just by clicking on those negative ones. And now I just have a few good items left on the page, which is exactly what I want. I can still add those good items in, but that's working. So another thing we need to do is have some sort of point system going on. So we need to create something to house our points. So I'm just going to go back into our code, and remember up at the top is where we're storing all our variables, all our objects. So I could create a variable, var, and call this points, and it could store whatever the current points are. So I'll do an equal sign and I'll set the points to 0 by default. That's what they should be set to. And whenever maybe I click on a good item, I'll want to increase the point by 1. So say the points are 5, I would want to make it 6. If it was 8, I would want to make it 9. So I can select the points, whatever the points are, by using that variable of points that we already defined up here, which is 0, and do 2 plus signs, and then end it with a semicolon. That's just going to find whatever points are and increase it by 1. So the first time we click on a good item, points will be 0, and it'll increase it to 1. The second time we click on a good item, points will be 1, it'll increase it to 2. So it's going to keep doing that. Now we want to do the same for the negative item, the bad item, but we want to decrease it by 1 every time we click on a bad item. So let's go ahead and test this out and see what happens. Well, also we'll need some way to show this on the page because it's storing that item points in the code, but it's not actually going to be reflected. It's not actually applied to this text yet. So I'm going to go ahead and find my countdown code again because I believe it has something in there we could use. So I think we could use this right here. This text content, that's the text inside whatever ID we have. So I'm going to copy that line of code and I'm going to go back over to my code. This number has an ID of points. So I can just target that ID to say apply the points to this text on the page. So I'll go back over here. Whenever we click on, say, a good item, we'll go ahead and get the ID of points, and we'll set its content inside it to whatever the current points are. So if that's 5, it'll make it 5, so on and so forth. And we want to do that too with the negative item, so that way it updates on the bad items also. And the order really matters. So like if I logged this points on this line before it actually decreased it by 1, it would log the like say this was 5 when it ran, it would still log 5 because it hasn't subtracted it yet to 4. So that's why we gotta apply that point after we do the subtraction. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that, publish it, and let's test it out. So we'll go back over here, and now let's click on a good item. It increments it by 1. What happens if I click on another good item? 2. What happens if I click on a bad item? It goes back to 1. Click on some good items. It seems to be working. So that is pretty good. Alright, that's working. So I think from there, the only thing else we would need to do is when the game's over, when the time runs out, we want to show some sort of game over message. So that could be done quite a few different ways, but I think I have a game over message applied in here somewhere. Let's see. It's called Endgame, I think. Game end. Okay, so let's just set that to flex for a second. So yeah, this game over div. What if I wanted that to maybe fade up or something? What I could do is I have this game over trigger. It's just a separate div, 0 pixel height, just fixed to the top. I could make that my trigger to show the game over div. So I'm gonna grab this game over trigger div, and I'm gonna apply a Webflow interaction on click or tap of this class. What we want to do is show game over, and from there I can grab the game over div, and then what I'll do is set its hide show to display none by default, set that as an initial state, but then its hide show will be switched to flexbox down here. And then we also want to fade the opacity, so the opacity of the end game will be 0, but then we'll fade it up to 100%, and we'll apply some sort of easing, maybe out court, so something, I don't know, something like that. What if we even slide it up? Like what if we did a move and moved it negative 100% down, and then we move it 0% back to where it started, do some sort of easing, so now it should just slide up. Actually, so that negative 100 should have just been 100% down, so now it should slide up. Yeah, alright, so now it just slides up and animates our game over div. We want that to happen whenever this 40 seconds is up. So I think I can add sort of a delay, and for that I have in the letter animation code that we've been using, this code right here, it sets a delay, so wait however many seconds before doing a certain action. So what we could do is copy that code, and in here we can say, so we don't want this to start until, we actually don't want this to start until we click on the start. So after, inside that start, we would add a set timeout, like a delay. And after, this is 800 milliseconds, we really want it after 40 seconds. So that's 4 seconds. This would be 40 seconds. What we would want to do is grab the class of this, let's see, where did it go? The Endgame Trigger, because we have a Webflow interaction applied on click there. So we can say after 40 seconds, just cause the computer to click on that item, queuing up our animation. So I'll play that in-game trigger, and we'll just do click to force it to click, and that should queue up our end trigger after those 40 seconds. So that should work there. Let's go ahead and save that. I'll go ahead and bring everything back in. So I know we hit a lot of stuff throughout this, but I'll bring the controller back in. I'll bring the start interaction back in. And let me go ahead and just publish this and see what we have going on now. Alright, so queue up the game. Nothing's happening. We'll hit start now. The music plays, the timer's gone. We can click on these. So yeah, after those 40 seconds, it popped up our game over div. We had our number of points that we had left. Everything seemed to be working. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. That's really how you can make a pretty cool interactive game. And it really doesn't take much code. It just takes a little bit of stuff, and you can pretty much build out a pretty awesome game in Webflow. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely feel free to subscribe, and that way you'll see future videos. Thank you so much to those of you who support this channel, because it allows me to put out content like this that really helps the Webflow community. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.